I mean, the one that kind of really stood out for me was where he called somebody out and they just didn't want to write something down to the point where they put crying celebrities' faces over the guy. So I'm like, okay, either they're trying to really just grill this guy or he didn't give us permission to use his likeness. And I'm like, that's just,
Well, it goes back. This is like in high school. You've got the guys it's the high school bully. It's the guy on the baseball team, the football team, the soccer team, whatever, that will call people out who don't do the thing that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And what that guy is aiming at is the 20-somethings who just came out of that scenario.
Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
once in a blue moon.
Well, maybe.
Okay.
Life is a fight.
Yeah.
In business, every day is a fight.
Yeah.
So, hey, what's your problem?
That's all I can really respond with today is yeah. I feel like I've really toned down James Hetfield. Yeah. Yes, that is the big voice guy for the podcast, John David Wells. Thank you, sir. Check him out at the Wells Report on Facebook. This is the What's Your Problem podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about the one thing, because it's always something that keeps entrepreneurs, sales professionals, just people in business trying to do their, go out and hunt and kill and drag it home. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. And as always, the big, hairy, audacious goal for 2023, probably going into 2024, 10,000 average downloads per episode. I guess if you were to look back over an annualized basis, let's try and shoot for that. Not exactly there yet, but, we're slowly but surely. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, and today a recurring guest. If I have you on again, it means that you were good. Now, what are all the people that listen to this that have only been on once? What are they thinking right now? What did I just say to them? Well, I don't know. We'll probably have you back on again. I don't know what that means. But, for the sake of my guest today, I'm having you back on for a reason.
Glad to be here.
You are actually, it's Mr. Jason Duncan, and your big thing, your big idea is exit without exiting. That is the thing that you speak on. You're a TEDx speaker. You're an author, podcast host.
That's right.
Multipreneur. Have you ever heard that term, multipreneur?
No, I have not.
I just inventitated it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Registered trademark, Jim McCarthy.
That's right. Inventitating things. And we're going to be talking to you again today about a whole host of different things, delving in deeper into the exit without exiting concept. But one of the things I want to talk about eventually is the fact that you and I have had the biggest social media piece of content that I think I've ever had. I think that thing is ticking up around 600,000 views at this point.
Wow.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, about real estate.
That's right. You don't really own your house.
That's correct.
Which is kind of sad when you think about it.
You got a lot of stupid hate on that, too. People were hating on it for stupid reasons.
They just did not know what we were talking about.
Yeah.
They really didn't. And it was I explained it in other episodes, and they still didn't get it.
No. Well, they don't get it. They don't get it.
You just do comment Tai Chi at that point.
That's right.
Say, okay, whatever. You just don't understand. So we're going to do something called the Dad Joke Challenge. This is something new you haven't done since the last time. A lot of things have changed, including this house, because we had a pipe burst, and you've had a fun experience of walking into reconstruction for 7 months now. It's wonderful. And the Dad Joke Challenge is brought to you by Mr. Ed Fox with Trade Bank of Nashville. You ever use Trade Bank, Jason?
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them? It's barter. So those businesses that do service or even products, and they got some languishing products that are hanging out on the shelves, or maybe business is a little slow, try Trade. Trade Bank will plug you into another network and enable you to maybe even sustain your business with other barter members in the network. So Trade Bank of Nashville. I just completely botched that.
Oh, well, it's interesting enough for me to want to look it up.
It's good. And the guy actually that heads it up, he's a good guy to know. He's an Aussie. And he loves dad jokes, so he's the one who provides them for us. You ready?
Oh, okay.
Joke number 1.
What do pigs put on their cuts? Ointment.
Jason's wondering, what did I get myself into?
Well, the delivery was about as funny as the joke itself.
It's like, note to self, Jim's podcast, not so sure for a third time. I'll get you back on again. Number 2.
Did you hear about the fire at the circus? It was intense.
There's lots of intense jokes.
A lot of intense jokes.
Yes.
Number 3.
Man, 2 silkworms had a race. Ended up a tie. What do you get?
All right, maybe.
He said when he was on the episode, he's actually the episode we released this week, and he says he strategically places them in a certain order so they get funnier and funnier.
What do you get if you divide the circumference of a pumpkin by its diameter? Why, pumpkin pie, of course. Hey.
You got to be smart to get that joke.
That one's good. That one's not bad.
Yeah.
Last one.
Hey, what did one snowman say to the other? Do you smell carrots?
Okay. That's an Olaf joke.
It is an Olaf joke. It's a no-laugh joke. We didn't laugh. Actually, I did.
That was the funniest joke of the day.
That was pretty good, right?
That was the best one of the day. The dad joke, the ringer. That was it.
Created a dad joke out of thin air just now. My gosh. So there you go, the Dad Joke Challenge, Trade Bank of Nashville. All the details are in the description. If it's something that piques your interest, it is something that really does take a while to wrap your mind around. It's not an easy concept to think about, but once you do get that aha moment, you're like, okay, I get it. I get it now. Like the very first episode I had with Ed Fox, he's been on 3 times now. And the whole episode of the first time I had him on was me trying to figure out what Trade Bank does. And at some point, he even said, he's like, are you putting me on? I'm like, dude, I swear to you, I have no idea. I'm just not getting it. But apparently it's just not me. So
I love barters.
Yeah.
Like I love to barter. So
here we are again, talking about that one piece of content that we put out not too long ago, and the haters that did kind of rain down, so to speak. What was the one that stood out to you the most? The concepts that they were talking about.
I just remember one person just saying something about this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Why would we even buy a house then? It was just, it had nothing to do with the reality of a tax situation. Real estate taxes are the worst taxes I think ever imposed. Well, maybe the death tax, that's the dumbest one, but the real estate's got to be right up there in the top 2 or 3. Because you don't ever own your real estate. That was the whole point. Because you could pay you could pay your house off.
Yeah.
And you don't pay your real estate taxes, they will come and take your house away from you. So you don't really own it.
Right. Because
we have allowed, as a society, allowed them to tax our real estate in perpetuity forever. So that was the point. Yeah. And yet people in the comments were like, well, that's dumb. You know, why would you still have to buy a house? I didn't say don't buy a house.
Right.
I was just making a point about you don't really own it. Pay it off. That's fine. But you still got to pay the county, the city, the state. You still got to pay these people.
Well, how do you fund the fire department and the police department and all that stuff? That was the other one that stood out to me. Was that, what are you saying, not to pay your taxes? No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. That guy was like, well, you're saying don't pay your taxes. No, dude, listen to the doggone show, man. Take your cotton out of your ears and listen.
And I thought I was pretty clear on it when I made that clip. Or maybe I didn't make. Somebody else actually, I had produced that clip, and they actually picked up on it, took the content, put it all together, and then we put it out there. And it's funny because they even resonated with it, the one that was producing the clip. So it's just kind of amazing how that kind of all worked out.
Yeah.
And then you just never know with social media.
Nope, you never do.
Yeah,
it's always changing.
Do you try and put out a lot of controversial topics out there?
No, I don't try to do it, but when I do it, it gets a lot of play. Like I'm doing a live event in Nashville coming up in August, and the live event is all about whole life insurance and how to use that to your benefit.
I saw that one that you just put out. Yeah.
So my content around it, we named the event "Why Dave Ramsey is Wrong" about whole life insurance, and so I'm getting more views and people. I haven't got any haters yet, but I'm sure that's to come. But had one person write back or send a comment like, "Well, I've always been a fan of Dave Ramsey, but I don't even live in Nashville, so I can't come to your event." Well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to come to the event. And this has nothing to do with not being a fan of Dave Ramsey. It's just, I'm going to show you a perspective that he's wrong about for the wealthy people, for people who own their businesses. For the modern mom and dads, soccer moms and employees, Dave is fine. Go listen to him. But if you want to rise above that and make a huge impact in this world, some of his advice just doesn't work.
He's good for getting you back to zero.
Yeah, but it's always zero. I don't want to be at zero.
Well, I mean, most of the people are behind the 8 ball, and he tries to get them out of the bad debt. And I understand what he's trying to do. We ran into that when I was in the car business a lot. A lot of people that didn't want to finance a car or leasing a car was bad. More so with Honda, less of sorts with Mercedes. But I had a customer at Honda that was hell bent on trading in his, I think it was a 2013 CRV at the time. And they owed, I think they owed a significant amount of money on it, about a $500 and change dollar a month payment. But his wife went to go work for, at the time, the Lampo Group. And because of what they preach, she was drinking from the fire hose. Well, we got to sell it. We got to get rid of it. They had about $11,000 in cash that they wanted to buy just a car to be paid off. Trade in the CRV. They were $6,000 upside down in CRV for what they owed. And it got to the point where I sat down with the guy. We were going over the numbers, and we found him a 2001. It was sight unseen at another dealership in Fort Myers that we had to bring up to Nashville. A 2001 Honda Accord with 167,000 miles on it. And he says, I want that one. Okay. Being that you're trading it in, you're not going to pay any taxes on it or anything, but you're literally spending $11,000 for a 2001 Honda Accord that you have not driven or seen. He goes, yeah. I said, I'm going to take my salesman hat off right now. I'm going to put my human being hat on and tell you this is a colossally bad idea. Take your money and make your payments for your CRV. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. You're going to have that thing for the next 15 years. It's going to be reliable. You'll have it paid off in 4 or 5 years. And you'll be fine, okay? Just stick with the CRV. Nope, can't do that. Okay. Take my human being hat off, put my salesman hat back on, sign here. Now I could sleep at night. I told you.
Where's that guy today?
I'm sure they were happy with it. I mean, the car came in on a flatbed delivery truck. They got it off and handed me the key as the salesman. And I'm going, please start, please start, please start. I get in, started right up. Okay, took it through the car wash, washed it up, called him up. Come on, get it. It's here.
Yeah.
$11,000 for at the time, a 13-year-old vehicle.
Well, I think that there is a lesson in this that you could be have the right motives, but make wrong decisions to get to the outcome you want, and you're not any better off.
Right.
So the means doesn't justify the ends.
Interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're having this event in August. I am familiar with the concept. Mm-hmm. Is it more of a LEAP methodology?
LEAP would be one of the methodologies, yes, but it is not. We're not going to be teaching that specifically. My guy that's coming in to do this is a certified financial professional. He's also a certified guy on Bank on Yourself, which is a concept that is registered trademark called Bank on Yourself. You can look that up. But he's my guy. He does all my stuff for me. And we're going to be doing a 2-hour deep dive into what you can do with whole life insurance if you get past the fact that Dave Ramsey's wrong about it. Like if you can admit, okay, he says buy term, invest the rest, which is what he's been saying for 30 years. To his credit, he's not wavered. Yeah. But what if you found out that all of the wealthy people and the folks that had money around you were doing the exact opposite of what Dave is teaching? Would you be curious about it? Would you want to know why? Would you want to know why he might be wrong? That's what this is a 2-hour live event, is just telling you what you might be missing and then show you what it could look like. If I had started this 20 years ago when I first read Dave Ramsey's books, I would be sitting on literally millions and millions of dollars of cash value that I could access
if you got a whole life term.
If I'd have done it 20 years ago. Now I do that now, but I only started 5 years ago.
You and me both. That's about the same time we started.
So I started way late. What's funny about this is how I learned about this is I was driving to Cookeville in my truck to pick up my RV. It was out there for service. And I was listening to a podcast like I normally do in cars, like I'm sure a lot of your listeners are doing. Maybe they're doing it right now.
Right.
And there was a guy who was a guest on another show. And honestly, I don't even remember what the show was, but I know the guest. The guest, he started talking about this whole life thing. And I thought, wait a minute. Dave Ramsey said, don't do this.
Right.
So I was curious. I thought, well, what is this? What is it? So I started listening. And then I went and found that guy who was the guest. I went and looked him up. He had a podcast called the Laura Murphy Report. And I started listening to their stuff. And I was absolutely blown away. I thought, I have been missing this. It's a place to protect your money, to keep it protected from the creditors, keep it protected from taxes. It's infinite compounding interest. It's not about life insurance. It's about what you're doing to your money.
Right.
Protecting your money. So I went down the rabbit hole, and once I discovered what it was, I was like, I'm in. Like, whatever I need to do to get into this, this is where I should have been all along.
Well, that guy I was telling you about, Mike Mercurio, he's the guy who does it for me. And he's the one who kind of taught my wife and I about it. And through the LEAP method, plugging in all our numbers, the amount of protection we've had, the income and everything, we meet with him every year and adjust the numbers. And it's a fun meeting because thankfully everything's going up. And it's interesting because I never knew that either. Yeah. All I know is that it's a big chunk of a bill to pay every month, but you're kind of investing it in yourself. This
is what I told my wife recently. We were having this conversation because my policies are 6-figure premiums. And because the higher the premium, the more benefit you get long term, because it's not about the death benefit. It's about how you're protecting your money and growing it. And of course, once a year when that premium comes due, it's like, ugh, that's a big, you got to check yourself. Is it the right thing? And I'm all in. I understand it. My wife is, she trusts me. But we had this conversation. I said, here's the thing, babe. If we weren't doing this, we would spend all of that money. I might have bought something cool. I might have invested in real estate, whatever. But I would have spent the money. This is forced savings.
Right.
If anything else, if you're going to look at it just from that perspective, it's like I have to pay this premium because it's forcing me to save. Because 5 years from now, 100% of the money I've put in up to that point will be available, and then it continues to grow beyond that. So it's a really interesting way to look at money. And once you discover the reality is, and there's lots of Instagram clickbait that says, hey, let me tell you the thing that the rich people do that they don't want you to know. Actually, we do want you to know. We want you to know how. We want you to join us in this. But they actually are doing this.
Yeah.
I know one person in my circle of people. I know one who's worth at least 8 figures. If he's worth close to 9, and he doesn't do this. He's the only guy I know, and I'm hoping to goodness that he comes to this thing. I just want him to be exposed to it because I don't think he's been exposed to it.
Because it's just another thing he can do, and it's no sweat off his back.
Right. Because he could drop, if he I'm not going to say what business he's in because I don't want to give away, but like he could make a sale in his business, and let's say he had $500,000 that he could put somewhere. Boom. He could park it here, and it would infinitely compound in interest, yet he could continue to use the money. Think about it this way. If you had 3 $100 bills, right? I had this like physically to show you. All right. If you had $100 bill, just one, and you took this $100 bill and you put it over here and you spent it on something, that 100 is now gone.
Yeah.
All right. So it's out. So that 100 is gone. Let me take one of these others. What if I'd have taken that second $100 bill? What if I'd have put that into real estate, for example, or crypto, whatever it is? I put it in there. What happens to it? It grows. Mm-hmm. It goes up. It creates more than $100. But if I want to use that, I got to pull it out, and it stops growing at the same rate because I pulled some of it out to buy 2,100 Accord, right? Yeah. So I had to pull some of that. But let's go to that third $100. So if I take that third $100 bill and I put this third $100 bill into a properly structured whole life policy, that money will continue to grow forever. Let's say I want to pull it out and buy real estate. So then I pull it out, I also buy real estate. It's growing here and it's growing over here. And then if I wanted to pull it out again and go buy a car, I could do that. And it continues to grow as if I've never touched it. That is the beauty of the properly structured.
You're basically you can take out a loan against it at some point based on how much the cash value's in there.
Yeah, because the life insurance company knows that, that's the best collateral they've got.
Right.
You can't go anywhere because if you pass away, and let's say it's $100,000 $100,000 life or benefit. Would be more than that. Say it's $1 million death benefit, and you owe $500,000. Well, they're just going to give your family $500,000, right? Because you already spent the other half, and you don't need the death benefit. I mean, if you're doing life right as a wealthy entrepreneur, building things, the death benefit is not what you're in this for. You're not in it for the death benefit. You're in it for protection.
Yeah. Well, we got a few term policies on us.
Yeah.
You know. Because people never think about, even, you know, my wife being the homemaker, mother of my children, being there for them. God forbid something happens. You're talking about hiring a slew of people to take care of the kids, yep. Right? You need somebody to drive them around. You need somebody to cook for them, clean the house, all that stuff. And that's what I think about. You know, if I ever kick off, she's set. So.
Yep, agreed.
She's worth 7 figures at this point.
Yeah, we told the kids that. They was like, yeah, if something happens to us on our next trip, you know, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Do you believe in, like, a lot of people talk about generational wealth, and I've seen a lot of influencers, thought leaders talking about this concept. Do you really want to leave it to your kids? You know, what is the solution for that? Because, you know, they can't appreciate it if it's just given to them.
So the first generation makes it, second generation spends it, third generation loses it. That's right. That's the old shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So my concept of generational wealth is different than probably what most people think. Generational wealth generally is perceived as money that you leave to the next generation. Mm-hmm. So if you and I go into business together, we make a few $100 million and we leave that to the next generation, you know, after taxes, whatever. Let's say your family gets 50, my family gets 50 million. All right, listen, you got to be dumb to screw up 50 million. Right. You got to be really, really dumb, but people do it all the time. So they get 50 and they screw it up. All right. That's what most people think generational wealth is. You give it and it's just to the next generation. Generational wealth to me is making wealth that affects generations of people. Right. It doesn't have to be related to you. Interesting concept. So that's one way to look at it. So the thing is, I am on a quest to build generational wealth. I'm Ed Milet talks about when he in some of his talks about being that one person that changes the tree, the new link in the chain that changes everything. I feel like I want to be that guy for my family. I want to change things financially and what we're paying attention to make an impact in the world. So do I just want to be filthy rich to buy a yacht and, you know, Lamborghini, whatever? No, that's never going to fulfill me the way that I think a lot of Instagram gurus and, you know, these influencers want you to think. I want to affect generations of people. So if I can affect through wealth, generational wealth, 100,000 entrepreneurs by helping them get set free from the ironic prison of entrepreneurship to exit without exiting like I want to do, it's going to take money to do that. It's going to take lots of money because you can't affect 100,000 people with $10. Yeah. It's not going to do it. You got to make a big impact. Well, those 100,000 people have families and they have employees. And so that's going to be a generational impact because I'm able to build wealth to do that. Now, leaving it to my kids, well, there's ways that you can leave it in such a way that they don't get the entitlement. They're not trust fund kids. There's ways to do that. And there's smart people, smarter than me, that can show you how to do it. And there's ways to set up trusts that allow for the next generation and the next and the next and the next to continue building and require them to build new companies and require them to invent things, require them to invest in certain asset classes. My upbringing was upper middle class, slightly. My father owned his own business, did, throughout the 80s and 90s, well over $100,000 a year, which was a lot of money back then. I had that kind of a background. I didn't really come from poverty. When I came into my own with radio and making my own money, getting into entrepreneurship with side hustles and things, a lot of that money, as fast as I made it, went right back out the door. Were you kind of the same way? I mean, it's almost like you have to go through something to prepare you for when the day comes that you have, in my case, a little bit of a windfall. And since that has happened to me, my past has dictated my present behavior in terms of how to be good stewards of that money. And that's what it's sitting there waiting for the opportunity to invest it right now. And that's completely my mindset, even though I know I could go out and blow it on something stupid tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's like you've gone through as well throughout your life? Because you and I are the same age. Yeah.
And you and I have similar trajectories. You've actually started a little bit earlier in the believing in yourself and putting yourself your back against the wall from your story when you started the lighting company, from being a teacher and everything. You were probably about 5 years before I did that. So you're 5 years ahead of me. Was that something similar in your life, though?
I think from a background perspective, yeah, we were a middle class family. We were not poor by any stretch of the imagination. We didn't go on extravagant vacations or drive brand new cars. We lived in a modest house and we went camping. That was our vacations, and coincidentally, that's what I like to do. I like to go vacations in my RV, and that's what my wife and I do. So as I grew up and became my own person, I went into ministry first,
right,
and then I went into teaching. Neither of those professions pay much money, so I didn't really have much money.
The preaching profession can pay.
Yeah,
I've seen some preachers.
Today it can with the mega churches and all the mega church wannabes, but no, for me that was not the reality. I mean, I worked at churches where $20 grand a year would have been, it was barely hand to mouth.
Sounds like radio.
Yeah. Well, so for me, my money story, and this is where it goes back to what our money story is. My money story was that people who had money were probably cheating people. They're probably jerks. If you saw somebody driving a nice car, you looked at him with, just contempt. Like, who's he think he is? Yeah. That was my money story. Now, nobody taught me that. Mom and Dad never sat me down and said, hey, okay, a guy that drives a Beamer, he's an idiot. He's a jerk. Don't pay attention to him. But I was taught that just subliminally through my upbringing in church, my family, my community. So when I became an entrepreneur and became what I do believe the first millionaire in my family, I started going, wait a minute. If that was true, then I'm that guy. Well, I'm not that guy. So then there's cognitive dissonance here. I've got to figure out which one of these things is true. And so I decided that having money is not this negative thing, but you got to learn how to use it. So it's like a tool. Money has no value. Money's fake. I mean, we give it value, but money put in the hands of a master craftsman can do amazing things. But see, I grew up, nobody taught me how to use it. Nobody knew how to use that tool because we didn't have any. And I
was just told to save.
Yeah, well, and savers are losers. We now know that. I mean, you can't save your way to wealth. All these people that say, well, if you just stop going to Starbucks, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 60. No, it doesn't work that way. You're not going to save $1 million by skipping a Starbucks cup. Plus, your life may not be as enjoyable. Not that I like Starbucks, but like if you give up on things that you like, dude gave up a Honda CRV for a 2001 Accord. What kind of quality of life is that? You see, money has cash value that we ascribe to it, but money also has use value.
Yeah.
And that's what we forget about. See, that's where Dave Ramsey is going wrong, is that he doesn't calculate the use value of money.
Well, probably for himself he does. But
he has to. He has too much to not count it.
He is a classic example of formulaic radio. He and Dr. Laura back in the day was get the person on the phone, set up your topic for the top of the hour, talk about it for 10 or 15 minutes, and the rest of the hour you take phone calls. And you talk about their stories, you get them on, hear the story, berate them for a few minutes, and then give them a solution, move on to the next caller. Listen to all his shows. It's formulaic. He could do it in his sleep. Mm-hmm. Dr. Laura did the same exact thing. And it's kind of a gimmick. And I never discount what he talks about. I think there's a purpose to it. He helps people get out of that bad credit card debt. There's a good way to crawl out of it and getting back to null set, back to zero. Now we can start looking into the excess money you've got coming in. How do we invest it? How do we start building that wealth? That's where I think guys like Brad Lee, Cardone, they kind of come in and fill that void. In a way. Well,
we got to rewrite the money story.
Yeah.
The money story in most people's lives is that debt is bad and that you have to save, etc. Right. So let's break that down. What does debt mean? Mm-hmm. Debt means, if you just look at it, it's owing somebody something. Well, that's way too broad of a definition to classify it as bad. If I borrowed $10 from you because I left my wallet and I'm out of gas and I need to get fuel, is that bad? I'm not supposed to do that? Well, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about consumer debt. If you finance this couch, that's a pretty dumb thing to do.
That was an auction.
But if you finance a couch or a television or a steak dinner, it's probably dumb. Right. But if you say, look, I'm gonna borrow money that I don't have from somebody who has it, and I'm gonna invest in an appreciating asset that's going to throw off cash flow in excess of what it costs me to rent that money, because really debt is renting money.
Right.
So if you say, hey, I need to borrow $100,000 and I'm going to borrow it at 5% interest, well, that's a $5,000 interest over 12 months. Well, what's 5,000 divided by 12? Yeah. I don't know my math, but it's $483.
Yeah.
So your rental fee is $483 a month to borrow $100,000. Can you go make more than $483 with $100,000? Well, if you can't, don't borrow the money.
Right.
So there's where you shouldn't
borrow.
You
got to have a strategy and a plan.
Right. But if you're just saying, hey, I just want a new car, so I'm going to go borrow $50,000 to buy a new car, and it provides zero cash appreciation value, and you don't have disposable income equivalent to whatever it costs you to buy that car, then don't rent the money to buy the car.
Do you believe in paying cash for a car?
No, absolutely not.
Leasing, right?
No, use my life insurance.
Yeah, there you go.
Use your life insurance, or debt can be, debt on a car could be advantageous if it's cheap enough interest rate. Right now we're in weird times, but if you can borrow money at 2 or 3%, creative financing on a car, borrow the money. Don't pay cash, because you can't. You're going to lose that in your investments.
Some of the younger people that work for us here have had times where they have to get into a different vehicle, and because a lot of their lives revolve around the church and biblical teachings, and Dave Ramsey kind of comes into that. Several times where they've had totaled cars, they get a nice check from the insurance company. Every single time I say, look, take a portion of it. Some of them have never had a car loan. And I'm going, you got to get a car loan on your credit report, because it helps it immensely. Just go out, find yourself a $10,000, $15,000 car, finance it over 60 months, put $2,000 down, you'll be fine. And it's like agonizing to them. They just won't do it.
That's bad money stories, and the church is not helping that at all. I mean, Dave quotes improperly Solomon from Proverbs, the borrower is slave to the lender. Yeah. Listen, first of all, Proverbs is not instructive. Proverbs is King Solomon making. He's making observations about how life is working, and he looked around and goes, you know what? The people that borrow money from these people, probably to go do something dumb with it, they're really the slave to the guy they borrowed the money from to go buy the couch.
Yeah.
That was an observation. It wasn't an instruction.
Yeah.
And that's where I think his heart is in the right place. I don't have a beef with Dave Ramsey. I would love to interview him on my show. I would love to meet him, because I think he's done a world of good for people financially.
Absolutely.
But I think once you move past a certain threshold of
calling
income,
him out on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, once you move past the threshold of income and ability to make impact in the world, as he has done, you can't tell me that dude don't have debt somewhere. There is no flipping way that guy's not. Life insurance, something. Yeah. He owes somebody something. And I don't think he's a slave. He's not a slave. He's a free man.
No. I mean, we when I sold Mercedes, and I think from the dealership in Cool Springs, you could see his house, because it's up on the hill.
No, he sold that one. Yeah.
Well, at the time, he still lived there.
Yeah.
And when people would come in, they'd want to buy, maybe something of value, and I'd try and sell them. The extended warranty is something that people don't want to do either. But when I got into my sales mode, I would say, look, the things, once you got the car, let's talk about these things. Even though the car is relatively new, it's maybe 4 or 5 years old, it's still a machine. It's made by humans. It's imperfect. They typically break. So for an extra $10 or $15 a month, give yourself peace of mind, and at least consider the extended warranty that they're going to try and sell you in the box. And a lot of people, just don't do that. I get it. Do you trust me? I sold, we've had a rapport here. These are honestly the things that I will do when I buy a car. I will buy extended warranty. I will buy, whatever, the mop and slop that they had at the time. I said, but I buy the extended warranty because I had a car that was 6 years old at the time, and the engine went. Guys, I spent $250 to get a new engine. And it worked. It worked out. Okay. I don't want to see you in that situation. Well, Dave says. Okay. If something happens to the car, he lives right up there. Knock on his door and say, okay, now what? You told me not to buy the warranty. So what do I do?
Yeah.
And I would just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, that warranty thing is such a weird. I've got a really good friend of mine that they had a Jeep Grand Cherokee and the engine went out and they had bought the warranty, and so for $100 they got a brand new Hemi. Got a new Hemi put in it.
Cover yourself, man.
But there are also there's a dozen guys that paid the full, the warranty fees through the whole thing and never had a claim. Well, so
that's what insurance is.
But maybe it's a little bit of an insurance policy against the potential loss in the future. So I think it's a case by case basis, especially depending on how good the warranty is. I had one time that wouldn't fix anything. It had too much fine print. Yeah. And it kind of screwed me
all
over.
the loopholes.
Yep.
When I had Cardone on the first iteration of this podcast was called the JMVO Weekly Primer, and he was nice enough to give me an hour of his time. We did it virtually. And I said, I would love to put on an event. This is before events became so saturated, and as they are now. I said, I would love to do almost like a WWE type of event where you get the big fraternity of influencers and thought leaders. I said, we'll get Mylett, Vaynerchuk, Bradley. And I said, I want to get Dave Ramsey in that mix and have you guys do all your spiels, but stick around. Let's do a roundtable discussion with everyone and just let her rip. And he's like, I would love to do that. He says, but man, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to beat him up. There's something I could probably learn from the guy. Yeah. And I said, dude, that's really big of you to say because, you kind of pick on him. He says, I'm not saying what he's saying is wrong. It's just, it's not what I do. It's not how like what you're talking about. What we all talk about. It's not how you build wealth. I said, but man, that would be a fun thing to moderate.
Well, you've got Ramsey's audience is completely different than Cardone's audience. I mean, Cardone's speaking to a different group of people. They're trying to do different things. So just because something's true doesn't make it true for every person in every situation. Right. So is it true that you shouldn't borrow money on a credit card? Maybe, maybe not. For one person in one situation, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Another person, yeah, I'm gonna use the credit card company's money to go do something that creates money. Yeah. I mean, in my coaching company, I've invested nearly $250,000 to get the coaching company going. Now, long term, it's going to make me millions of dollars. Yeah. Should I have not done that? No, I should have done it, and I did do it, and I would continue to do that.
What I think you need to do in the messaging of that coaching company is the fact that you have the scars, you have the battle scars, and we talked about this on the last episode. Look, there are a lot of coaches out there that just don't have the scars. I've built businesses, I've sold businesses, I've been in the mix, I've put on tool belts to go out and fix lighting. I mean, I've been through the rigmarole. I have a license to talk about this. Yeah. You know what I mean? I even get other people to kind of say, I'll say it for you. I've seen what you've done, the projects you've done.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I had a guy just yesterday on Instagram that reached out to me, and he's followed me for a while, and he occasionally makes comments, and he'll send DMs every once in a while. And he just said, I can't remember the specifics of the conversation, but he said something to the effect of, I just finished your book. I think what he said was, well, heck, let me just read it. I got my phone. Let me pull this out. And so I'm not gonna say who it is because if he listens to the show, I'm trying to bust his balls, but it completely wrong perspective. So let me see if I can find this guy here. Where is it at? I've sent a lot of messages today. All right, man. Where is he at?
We'll throw attention.
There we go.
Here we
go. So here's what he said. He goes, "Thank you. I've wanted to do your program. However, I don't see the value in the price, nor have I seen the people that truly benefited from your program."
Oh, wow.
Like he says this in a DM to me, and I'm like, okay, what do you want? So I said, well, fair enough. Sounds like I've done a poor job of demonstrating the value to you. That's my bad. Yeah. And that is, like, if you haven't demonstrated value as a salesperson, that's on you. Yeah. So I went back and said, well, that being said, there are a lot of testimonial videos on my website that you might have missed. Yeah. You go back and look at that. And I went on to explain a couple of other things. I said, I'm going to be doing this live event that you might be interested in. And he said, this is what made me think of this. Where and or who trained you to help people get results?
I did.
And I'm thinking, okay, you reached out to me, Joker. Like, what in the world is going on here, man? You asked me a question. You said you want to do my program. But you don't see enough value in it. What does that even mean? Yeah. I didn't knock on your door and say, hey, man, would you like to buy a vacuum cleaner? And you tell me it doesn't work. No, you came and said, hey, I need a vacuum cleaner, but I don't think yours works. That doesn't make any sense.
Let me guess, you go to his site and his profile, and he's got like hardly any followers and content.
Well, I didn't even look. I didn't even take that. I don't put the mental energy into that, man.
I did the last video that kind of hit for me was very controversial. I said, if you're too sharply dressed, in my opinion, I think you're sending the wrong message.
I think there is some wisdom in that. Yeah.
Well, there are so many people. One guy on LinkedIn, he says, I usually listen to your stuff. I gotta disagree with you. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying I'm God of opinions out there. Okay, I don't have correct opinions. It's just my opinion. I've met people in the past that have dressed really sharply. There was one company in mind that sold, they would sell a service of setting your company up in Nevada as a Nevada corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And they advertised on the radio station where I worked at the time. And a buddy of mine, who's one of the smartest people I've ever known, one of the fraternity of 5 people that I know that's just brilliant. After these guys would record radio spots, and I kind of got involved with them a little bit, helping them out with media and whatever, back in 2004, he goes, those guys are just way too sharply dressed. They're wearing pinstripe suits, dude. And he goes, that's telling me something's off. And I've never forgotten that. And I've always, you look at some of these guys like Vaynerchuk, Ed Milet, they show up as is. Us guys, we're wearing our button down. We look okay. I mean, I could probably, I could afford to lose a few pounds, but I'm getting there. But it's one of those things that this is what you get, man. Buy me for what I know and what I've done. Yep. Right?
Well, going back to the comment stuff, in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks a lot about how mindset operates and what we think about and we bring about. Well, in the follow-up book to that, which most people have not heard about, not read, it's called Outwitting the Devil. You've heard of this?
No.
All right, so everybody needs to go look this up on YouTube. It's called Outwitting the Devil. It was written, I think, only 2 years after he wrote Think and Grow Rich in the late 30s. But his family didn't want to release it because of the controversial nature around what the book was about. It was Napoleon Hill interviewing the devil. Yeah. And it was just 2 voices back and forth, the devil and him. Sharon Lecter, I'm sure you've heard of, she helped write Rich Dad, Poor Dad series.
That's right,
Robert Kiyosaki.
I listened to her on your podcast.
Yeah, she was on my show. And just recently, she put my book as in her top 7 books that you should read, which I thought was really cool.
Nice.
But she actually brought that out of the archives and had that published in 2011, Outwitting the Devil. That's the setup. Go listen to the book for free on YouTube. Go buy it. Definitely listen to this book. Read this book. But one of the things that Napoleon asked the devil, he said something to the effect of, well, give me one of your secrets on how you're going to take over the world. How are you going to do this? And the devil's answer was this. He said, among other things, he said, here's one thing. I am going to encourage people to offer their unsolicited opinions on matters that do not concern them in public spaces.
That was written in the 30s.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
And what he was talking about, he said, like, I'm going to encourage them to write letters to the editor over things that don't concern them. Right. They're going to do things in the public sphere that don't concern them. And I thought, dude, that's like Facebook. He's talking about Facebook. Yeah. He's talking about Twitter. He's talking about these social media platforms where we got these people like this guy. He may end up that I quoted the DM. He might end up coming to work for me. I may put it in a little darker light than it actually is. But these people that go and they lurk and they're keyboard warriors, they're the reason our society is falling down. If it is not concerning you, shut the hell up. Nobody wants to know. Don't go and comment anonymously or put your thing. Nobody needs to know.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you and say, Jim, I really disagree with you and here's why, that's appropriate. Yeah. But don't just sling rocks, man. Just if it doesn't bother you, leave it alone.
But the way you combat those people is what I call comment tai chi, right? You just kind of get in there and you give a little candor and absorb the blow and just kind of give it right back to them in a very subtle way. Well, that's what I do.
Well, the biggest views I had on social media, the one that had like 32 million views, the comment section on that dude was insane.
Yeah.
The first 2 or 3 months, I couldn't keep up with it. It was so crazy, and then I just had to quit.
You just forget it.
I couldn't go back in there because
you're saying the same thing over and over again.
Well, yeah, and it was nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't fix, and there are people offering their unsolicited opinion on things that do not concern them.
Because we've signaled to the world that it's okay to do.
Yeah, we've made it acceptable and encouraged it.
Right. I've already teed up my next controversial piece.
Let's go.
And it's actually has to do with another, what I call a guy who's kind of becoming a very preeminent sales trainer out there. And he's been dominating the socials. Good for him. A lot of controversial subject matter. Not subject matter, but the way he goes about it is very controversial. Calling people out in paid trainings and stuff like that, where it's not like he's going to train an organization. It's a class. Well, hey, you pay $2,000, you come hear from this guy, blah, blah, blah. And you probably know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about. He wears very tight pants.
Yes, very tight pants. I'm not going to give him any other attention. He gets he does the Howard Stern effect very well. And if he were sitting here, I would tell him, look, dude, I know exactly what you're doing. The game you're playing. I don't know if you believe your own stuff. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I know exactly what you're doing. All right. I completely disagree with it. I don't think there's any value in conducting any business like that. But hey, you're going to attract a certain kind of an audience who resonates with it. And but you're going to be in perpetual. And I said this on a recent podcast I was on, and I'm sure they're going to make a clip out of it. And I'm sure I'm going to get all sorts of hate. I'm going to be called, a fat old guy and all that stuff. I get it. Completely understand. But I just believe you're going to be perpetual hunting mode by doing that.
I don't understand why social media rewards that type of behavior so much. Because if that dude showed up in a public, we both know who we're talking about. We're not going to say his name. But if that
if you want to say his name, I don't care.
No, I'll leave.
You agree with me?
Yeah, 100%. Because if that guy showed up in a public forum and did what he did in a public forum, everybody go, this guy is a wannabe cult leader. This is insane. What is he trying to do here? Why is he's slamming on the people that are in? I saw a video of him where he called out a guy who just didn't shout the thing they were all shouting at the same time. He goes, how come you didn't shout our thing? And if it's like me, I'll be like, I don't shout things. I'm sorry. I don't do that. I went to a Tony Robbins thing, sat on the front row, and I was probably the one guy that wasn't doing all the dancing. Now, at some point I got caught up in it, and I'm like, I'm doing it, but against my will.
Yeah.
But don't, that's not me. Now, if you want to do that, and some people like it, I guess that's fine, man. But there's a friend of mine, I'll tell you off air here. There's a friend of mine he's got a podcast. And he's doing a lot of react videos to this guy, and he is blowing him up. And I'm thinking, it's just so funny.
But that guy is eating that kind of stuff up.
Oh, he loves it.
He's eating it up.
Well, it feeds into what he's trying to do. But I think the machismo that's going on around now, that Grant's kind of backed off some.
Grant, I think this guy came in to fill that void that Grant left. Grant's more about real estate now and doing his Cardone Capital thing.
Yeah.
His, the Cardone U and the sales training, he's got teams that do that. He doesn't want to do that anymore. But he wasn't like that. And a lot of the stuff I told him when he was on that. And look, I've heard your the 120 different closes that you had in the book. I said, I would say probably 10 of them resonated with me. And he says, and that's all I'm looking for, man. Pick the ones that work for you. He says, I've tried them all, and they've generally worked for me, and I've got a way about articulating them and communicating them. But for anybody who reads the book, it's just pick the ones you like. Yeah. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's genuine when he says that.
I think that's what I've never met Grant. I haven't had that pleasure to sit down and talk with him, but I see him. It looks like there's moments where you're like, this guy really is legit. He's over the top.
Yeah,
he is over the top, but he is legit. He can bring it home, and he's got a really big heart for what he's trying to accomplish. So for that, I'd give him that praise.
Yeah, and I think that he's done a really good job with that. But he's also evolving. He's in his probably in his mid to late 60s at this point. Because when I met him back in 2018, he just turned 61 or 62. So that was 5 years ago. So late 60s.
Yeah, he doesn't look late 60s.
No. He's got that 10X health thing going on now, and he looks great. Young wife, that'll keep you young. But this other guy, the one that kind of really stood out for me was where he called somebody out, and they just didn't want to write something down to the point where they put crying celebrities' faces over the guy. So I'm like, okay, either they're trying to really just grill this guy, or he didn't give his permission to use his likeness. And I'm like, that's just,
Well, it goes back. This is like in high school. You've got the guys it's the high school bully. It's the guy on the baseball team, the football team, the soccer team, whatever, that will call people out who don't do the thing that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And what that guy is aiming at is the 20-somethings who just came out of that scenario.
Yeah.
His crowd is all 20-somethings that have just enough money to come do that, who want to be the next superstar salesperson. And so they're used to being, called out and challenged.
It's one of those things that, now that I'm at a certain point in life, I'm like, man, I wish you would have done that to me. You want to get some content? Let's get some content.
Yeah.
Okay, let me push back on you now.
Yeah, I just don't even go to those things, man. I'm out.
It's frat boy sales conferences. That's what I'm calling them.
Yep.
So you got the conference coming up, Exit Without Exiting. You're talking a little bit about that. Or is it mostly just life insurance, whole life
Yeah,
insurance?
this is just two hours of deep dive into whole life insurance. We're going to show you how it works and show you how you can set it up. And you don't, and what most people think that they get aware of this is you got to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's not true. You can get started even with a little money. You got to have something, but you can get started. But we're going to do 2 hours deep dive into that. So that's coming up August the 9th. And then I've actually got three more live events this year
Nice.
that I'm doing. And then next year I'm going to be doing 4. I've already got one of them booked. And it's just these events, people are really wanting to do this. And the cool thing is that my guest experts that are coming in, they want to be here. They're like, hey, I'll fly in. You don't have to pay me to come in. Because I don't pay them. Like
Right.
we come in, you get in front of my audience and we do live stream for free if you want to do the live stream, or you can pay $47 to show up in person. It's not a bad deal.
Nice. Very cool. So are you doing the TEDx Old Hickory event coming up in August?
Yeah, I'm actually one of the MCs.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just had Amanda on the show not too long ago.
Yeah, she's a great lady.
Yeah. She was ambitious.
Very.
Yeah. And also the Exit Without Exiting, anything going on with that more? I mean, what I really liked about what you had recently was that call where everybody kind of got on. How many people were on it? 20, 30?
It's about 40, yeah.
40 people? And that's once a quarter?
Yeah, so my Exeter Club, which is my mastermind, I host a live virtual happy hour once a quarter, and then we can invite whoever we want to show up. And as you saw, we had a lot of people show up.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. And I never knew who's going to show up. Yeah. And we had a $1 billion room. We had a $1 billion room of people in there. It was phenomenal.
I was a very small part of the $1 billion, I assure you that. We're trying to change that, right? So, I mean, a lot of that, you're having that once a quarter, and anybody can join.
Yeah, anybody. Well, anybody could join. It's for male entrepreneurs.
Right.
I would even imagine that particular thing would be female entrepreneurs too, but it's geared towards men.
Yeah.
Because it is a virtual happy hour, smoking cigars and drinking whatever whiskeys or bourbons you want to do. And we just talk for an hour and share stories. And then after the fact, I share everybody's contact information who's willing to share.
So you still with the fifth wheel?
It's travel trailer. Yeah. Still got it. Yeah, we only have one more trip this year. This year with my I have 26 speaking gigs this year. So
you take that out there with you?
Yeah, well, sometimes, but I had to fly so much for my speaking stuff. I wasn't able to do as much camping this year as I wanted to. So we only got one more trip left for the year.
Right.
Going in September. I'm not going anywhere in August. So in the camper. So I'm a little sad about that. But I leave this Friday on a 9-day motorcycle trip with my wife. We're going to do the Blue Ridge Parkway for 9 days and go all the way up and all the way back, and can't wait.
And you had because my thing would be to get a Class A bus, and I told Courtney, we actually have my RV in the backyard here.
I saw that.
Getting ready to sell it, and that was an interesting situation because I'll probably make about as much as I paid for on that thing.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mine's a 2018. We bought it brand new in 2017, and I could sell it for more than what I paid for it.
Because they're all so in demand right now. It's crazy.
Yep.
Especially that kind. It's a hybrid. Mm-hmm. But I would love to get back to what my parents did. That was always in a Class A.
Yeah. I would like my long-term goal in this would be to get a Super C.
Yeah.
Which C class is like a big rig front end.
Yeah.
But
it looks like a Freightliner with a motorhome back.
Yeah, it's a Super C, and have that, and then put a motorcycle lift on the back for my bike, and then have a hitch to pull a car, and we could go wherever we want to go.
So you're of the mindset that even it's nice to drive into a spot, have very limited setup time. You just connect your electric, your water, your sewer, auto level and all that stuff. That's kind of how we are.
Yeah, well, I can, with my travel trailer, we can be backed into a spot and set up within less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah, I want to get it down to 10.
Yeah. Come on now. Come on. It's fun. Everything about that's fun. I love it.
Yeah.
I would live in it. I don't know that I would like living in it. I would like to try that.
Right.
But
I've known people that have done that.
She's like, my wife's like, nah.
No, she still wants a house.
Well, yeah. She's like, not yet. But who knows? Our daughter still lives with us, and so if she wasn't there, maybe let's do a 90-day adventure. Let's see what happens. Because I meet with my clients, my one-on-one clients, and we meet in person once a quarter each of those guys. But other than that, man, I'm footloose and fancy free. I can go anywhere, be anywhere, podcast from anywhere, and just show up when I need to speak.
Yeah.
I'd love to do
I would have to build a podcast studio inside the rig because I love doing them in person.
Well, so my RV, the very front of it is a bunkhouse.
Yeah.
So when our kids were camping with us, that's where they slept. Well, now that's my office.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a makeshift desk and a chair, and I take my lights and my camera. It's it's pretty tight if you did two people in there, but you could do it if you wanted to. But I do my podcast from the road when I'm in there.
Nice.
And I've got a blue screen and a green screen that I can put up behind me. And I don't put anything on the blue screen. It's just to block all the crap that's back there on the wall.
How many episodes are you up to now? In your podcast?
170, high 170s. I can't remember, 77 maybe.
And that's what, in the last 2-3 years that you've been doing?
December 2020 recorded the first episode. Didn't release that episode until April of 2021. Right. So I'm, 2.5 years in?
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've got 2 shows I'm recording tomorrow, and I'm doing a lot more solos.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot more of those, and people who listen tell me they like them. I haven't had anybody say don't ever do an interview again, but I do have people saying, hey, the solos are actually pretty good. So I do a fair amount of those now.
I've actually been putting my clips out as audio one-offs. So taking the audio from the clip that you put on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all that stuff, I have a bookends, a produced intro, and then a kind of an outro with a call to action. And I'm putting them up as this little 60-second little one-offs on the audio platforms. So you know how that works. I haven't seen anybody really do that yet, but we'll see.
I have a really good idea around that I'll share with you. I don't want to share it publicly yet because I think I can still make it happen, but I got an idea about that.
There we go. How do people reach you and find out about you and follow you and all that fun stuff?
The Real Jason Duncan, just Google that. You can do it on Instagram. I spend a lot of time on Instagram at The Real Jason Duncan. Anywhere that's at The Real Jason Duncan, you're going to find me. YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn are the 3 places I spend time. I've got a Facebook group, but I hate Facebook, so I'm never there. So if you want to join the group, you're welcome to. It's at Exit Without Exiting on Facebook.
Yeah.
My book, Exit Without Exiting, is an international best-selling book. Came out in March.
Congrats, buddy.
Thank you very much. Yeah. You can go check that out. It tells the stories of 3 different entrepreneurs and how they went through their exit process and what pitfalls they encountered and how they succeeded. And then it builds around the 4 core principles that I teach on how to exit without exiting.
Have you made it into an audiobook?
No, I need to do it. Everybody says I got to do it. I don't know how to do it. Can you help me with that?
I can. but if you've got the rig to do podcast, you can just record it.
What I was told by somebody else who did an audiobook, he said you have to get a producer because you need somebody that can listen to you because they will tell you to go back and re-say words that you didn't say right. And the reason I know that's important is because I'm listening to an audiobook right now, and the guy evidently recorded it in an echoey room, and he makes mistakes, and I'm like, I don't want to pay $15 for an audiobook where you're making mistakes and it sounds like you recorded it in the kitchen. Yeah. So I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
So I got to figure that out.
That's something I can help you out with for sure. I just did a session with another author not too long ago. So
I'm thinking it's probably a 6 to 8 hour read time is what I'm guessing based on the number of words, 72,000 words.
So you're probably looking at about 2 or 3 days of recording.
Yeah.
Taking a break.
That's a lot, but I think it needs to be an audiobook. I've had a lot of people ask. As a matter of fact, I got a call right after this with a lady who sent me a DM. This is a good DM on Instagram. Just said, hey, just finished your book. Want to let you know, really liked it. I love what you're doing, and I'm working towards that, and I'd love to talk to you. Here's the other thing about it is that if you get a camera on you while you're recording it, make clips out of it.
It's not a bad idea.
Well, yeah.
either.
Well, that's a great idea. I mean, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, that's
a lot of people don't.
That's all my core content in my book. 100% of what I teach is in that book.
And then do what Cardone does. He puts all of his books on his message on hold. If you call his company, he puts you on hold. All you hear is him reading his books.
Love it. Love it.
Guy's a monster. Well, there you go. Check us out. Follow along the What's Your Problem podcast if you're a Middle Tennessee business owner, professional. Hey, if you're moving here from California and you're part of the throng of people that are invading our part of the country, follow along, especially if you're into entrepreneurship. Tell your friends about it. Tell all the people moving in. I'd really appreciate it. Remember that big, hairy, audacious goal that we have of 10,000 average downloads. Everything can be found right at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. Mr. Jason Duncan, always a pleasure, my friend.
I have one question for you before we go.
Go ahead.
What does a nosy pepper do?
I don't know.
It gets jalapeno business.
Oh my gosh! You know what the funny thing is?
There's your dad joke.
Holy crap! Why? This is how I'm rusty here. Here we go. What? It's what's your problem? I never asked you what your problem is. Holy
What is
crap.
my problem?
Yeah.
Right now, I got to pee. I don't know if that's it.
We'll leave it at that. That was good enough. It's just the gimmick, okay? We ask what the problem is. So, thank you again for coming on. You got to use the bathroom, and we're going to end it. So,
Thanks.
see you, buddy.